Alright, where were we? Alright. So, basically, Chaldea is being closed down because Hogwarts is upset that we saved the world or something. So we are told to dismiss all of our servants, so we shove them all into a suitcase and get ready to take them back home with us to live out all of our fantasies. We learn that Chaldea has been bought by a spoiled shit called Gorgie, who has a secretary that is a Tamamo not Tamamo. It's complicated. Anyway, they are telling us to leave when all of a sudden a bunch of birds with crossbows break in and quite literally kill everyone that we've been working with in Chaldea, except for like 5 of them, and then Anastasia shows up and freezes everything. We try to escape with the survivors in our Tesla truck, and while most of us are on board, we watch the corpse of Kotomine shove his arms all the way through Da Vinci's chest, adding a whole new meaning to fisting. We all scream, but then Da Vinci but illegal pops up and causes us to scream again. She drives the Tesla into the Antarctic wasteland, while this group of people that are actually all the original masters that died when the Lucky Charms guy blew up Chaldea in the beginning start setting up their Minecraft beacons. Da Vinci hits 88 miles an hour and we shoot into the dark void dimension of Ohio. While this is happening, the cryptors go to the Planet Earth console, drag the file to Photoshop into a clipping mask, and then set the color to white. This erases everything and most life, save for one dude on a motorcycle who travels the world and introduces every single Lostbelt story section, but we'll get into that. Maybe. While we're trapped in Ohio, Sherlock and Loli Vinci explain the multiverse theory to us. We begin to run out of gas, but we surface in a cold, desolate wasteland outside of Minnesota. We're all pretty beat up and are depressed at the fact that everything we've ever known is gone, but it's okay because Loli Vinci turns Mash into a cyborg, effectively making her a DPS that no one likes because they want her to stay as the best tank in the game. Anyway, we are also given a miniskirt to make it so that we don't die of exposure to Minnesota, and we and Mash set out to find food, fuel, or fun. Instead, we run into chilly lizards that try and take us down, but they are dispatched by just Mash because we don't have the power to pull all our servants out of the briefcase yet. So, get fucked all of you who didn't level her on her skills. I told you to, you didn't listen to me. We continue on and eventually stumble across a furry. He tells us that we are actually not in Minnesota, but Russian E621.com. We have a slight panic attack, but manage to keep our bearings. He introduces himself as Patsy. He tells us that he wants to kill and eat us, but doesn't because Mash is so cute. Instead, he takes us to the village of furries where he lives. There, we learn that his mom is his mom and that the bird people who murdered our friends are all actually serving the Eternal Tsar. This means nothing to us, and we ask him where we can get some food. He woos at us and we leave. We get ganked by some furry extremists that believe that we are physical anomalies for not having fur all over our bodies. I think they call us something weird and possibly offensive, but I do not recall. We leave and are given the option to go on the right path or the left path, and are told that our choice will impact the future. It doesn't. We fight a big-ass snake, and then drag its corpse to the Tesla. There, we shove it into the gas tank and have enough fuel to keep the motor running. Loli Vinci and Holmes tell us that we need to go chop down the tree and save the world, as we are living in the multiverse where humans have hit a dead end. In this universe, furries took over but couldn't solve global warming, so everyone who wasn't a furry went extinct, or at least that's their current theory. They tell us that we need to go find the big-ass tree, so we set off again. This time, we run into a familiar face, Adelante, but this time she's hotter. She likes kids, specifically the little puppy furries. She agrees to give us a hand so long as we don't hurt the kids, and we agree. Smash cuts to the inside of a castle somewhere in furry Moscow, where we see the main character from the Tokyo Ghoul and his gender swap talking to a bed. The bed tells us it's tired and a laugh track plays. The silhouette of Mozart plays the piano. They discuss the weather and it's really awkward, like, we know you like her, man, just tell her. Cut back to us and we're heading to a resistance camp. However, a sudden snowstorm cuts us off and we go back to the shelter in the cave. While in the cave, a ley line or something allows for us to summon one servant, and it picks a 3-star farming unit for us. He introduces himself as Avis Bro, and we love him. He begins making golems, but not the evil-looking ones, more like the hulking knight type. He sends some of them to our Tesla to start making repairs, and others to help us travel the snow faster. We love him. We make it to the Resistance Village, where we meet up with Billy the Kid and Beowulf, both for seemingly no reason, having spawned on the map and haven't been in the story since America. But it's nice to see them anyway. Loli Vinci radios us and tells us that we can summon servants again, but that they cannot retain a physical form, so they can only be summoned for battling, which is convenient. Adelante wants to see if we can be trusted and says, go in this hole, and we do. The hole leads us into a labyrinth, which can only mean one thing. One fluffy lad is wandering around. He does appear, but this time appears to have gone Super Saiyan. And as he's about to kill us, a miraculous Shotokan appears and slays him. Musashi just pulled a Liz and appeared in a random singularity. Thus, we emerge victorious and gain Adelante's trust. She allows us to stay with them as long as Musashi stays away from the kids. We go to liberate a village from the wrath of the bird people, and would you believe it, it's the village where our first furry friend lives. When we get there, it's already been ransacked and his mom's been killed. He stays behind to grieve and we just let him, I guess, and we head back to liberate a different village. However, a bunch of birdmen watch the whole thing and kidnap Patty, taking him to the capital. We feel a sense of betrayal in the air and we cannot pinpoint where it is exactly. We liberate another village and in this one, we end up finding a bunch of dead birdmen around a man in a red morph suit. He screams. We fight him and he calms down and agrees to help us. Turns out he's a 3-star Avenger, made famous mostly from a film that came out in 1984. We take him back to the camp and he plays music for the furries prison, they love it, having never heard of such a thing before. Smash cut back to the capital and they put pastry in the Ludwika machine to stare at the Eldritch Horror. They then release him and he returns to us. We go to greet him and he shoots us, saying he saw something horrible and that we had no way of resisting what was up ahead. We then begin to see the tree in the middle of Moscow. Parsley kind of goes into a form of shock and we leave him. We are discussing what to do next and ask Sally about what to do with parsnips. Sally tells us that the Russian leaders are Ivan the Terrible and his wife Anastasia, and that they are being assisted by John Ghoul of Tokyo Ghoul. Lowly Vinci and Holmes have a breakthrough and fully identify what's happening because of course they do. They then tell us that what likely happened is that some event exploded the world back in the 16th century, and that because of that, everything got frozen over. The people of Siberia and Russia survived because they were already accustomed to the climate, and Ivan, who I guess was a wizard, fused his people with demonic beasts so as to better survive. Wolves seem to be the most common ones used. They then tell us that we are going to need to chop down the tree, and in doing so, destroy this universe. We're like, alright, but Atlante Alter realizes that if that happens, then all these cubs will die, so we found the traitor. Psych! Avaspro goes to the other side as well for a bit because of moral reasons or something. I don't really remember why. So now we have Billy, Musashi, and Sally because I think Beowulf declared himself king in a village elsewhere and he's out doing his own thing. We go to check on things at the Tesla. They're like, yep, still bad, but we can drive now. And then we return to the Resistance base and everyone's dead. The bird people found it after putting a tracker on Patchy, I think. Atlante is pretty beat up and wounded and begins to cry. We help her out and I think she agrees to help. We rally as many of our forces as possible and decide that we have to launch an attack on furry Moscow. Ivan catches wind of this and begins to wake up. He emerges in the form of an elephant in a micro bikini. It is so micro that you can't actually see it on him, but trust me, it's there. He begins firing lasers at us as elephants tend to do when threatened, and so we rush him. Billy evolves and gets a hat and upgraded his weapon art to dark magic and conjuration. Beowulf punches a bunch of bird people and we run in. We are stopped by Anastasia and John Ghoul, who fights us. Then reveals that Anastasia is not actually Ivan's wife, but the one murdered when she was 17, making her jailbait at best for when she is summoned. She wields the power of ice. And then they also introduce a very fun boss fight mechanic where an enemy master fights you and is able to buff their servants. We summon Ushi and she dies regardless, then give Ushi head pats. Now we have to address the elephant in the room. Thankfully, Avaspro has been monologuing about how he had murdered a child in the Fate Apocrypha, spoilers, and was going to make up for that now. He summons a biblically accurate Adam and German suplexes Ivan the Terrible. This weakens him enough that we're able to whoop his ass. All of this while Sally is just killing it on the piano. Realizing he's going to lose, he goes down to his not-so-enormous elephant mode and stares at us. He more or less says that he had to do what he had to do for his people, and that the prosperity of them is what mattered to him. He does not resent us for what we are doing, but because it is essentially the same thing. Real shit though, this is a fairly powerful speech if it is how I recall it, and it is a standout moment in the Lostbelts. He then wanders off saying to kill the tree and wipe away the debt. As we're about to climb our magic stairs for the fight, we see a gender-bent silver surfer who just kind of sadly looks at us and then vanishes. We climb the stairs and summon Bunyan, who didn't need to climb the stairs and she just chops it down for us. The world around us opens up and the sun begins to shine. And now we can go back to the Tesla with John Ghoul as a prisoner so that we can interrogate him. Before we go, Matt Pat grabs us and says that if we are going to be going around and destroying universes, we better not feel bad about it because then we are just going to be pricks about it. Or something to that effect. We drive off to the next closest place, which is somewhere in my country of Void Scandinavia. Meanwhile, Sally plays Twinkle Twinkle Little Star until they pull the plug on e621.com. But then the tofu guy shows up and he chases us on foot, fires a rocket launcher at us, grabs John Ghoul, and we only manage to escape by returning to Ohio, left thoroughly shaken by the power of Mapo Tofu. We continue on our way to where we assume is Scandinavia, only leaving Ohio after we are sure we've shook off the priest. When we emerge, we are told by Gorgie that he feels sick every time that we do that, and we tell him to quit bitching in the kitchen. He goes off and pouts. We break into Scandinavia and find that nothing has changed. It's still covered in snow, straw-thatched huts, and giants wandering around, just like I remember back when I was visiting Mioma. We are still unable to fully manifest servants out of the suitcase, so we stop somewhat near a village and scan our surroundings. We're looking for a big-ass tree but don't see it. We assume it's being hidden, that we need to hunt down the ruler of this land. That should have been an alternate timeline Eric Bloodaxe, who to this day, 7 years later, is still dead after Okeanos. We pick up something odd on our radar and see a weird cat man running at us. We try to dodge it, but he intercepts us and literally rips Holmes in half. We then spray him with water and he runs off. We are then royally screwed because Holmes lost the M in his name after the attack. We put him on life support and hit the Tesla while we and Mash go searching for natives to ask questions. We get attacked by a giant and a little girl, not an elf, watches us fight it off. She then asks if we want some soup, and we go back to her house and have some soup. She then tells us that all the people here are happy and live simple lives. We ask her common sense questions to which she can answer none, more or less confirming that she is a bumpkin. However, we do learn from her that people do not leave the walls of the village unless they need to hunt or visit another village, and that they are protected by the Valkyrie. We're like, alright, and set out to find them. We learned that the crypt keeper for this Lostbelt is a girl named Ophelia, because we watched the Lostbelt trailer that they released. Ophelia was apparently good friends with Mash when she wasn't evil, and that she hates Wednesdays, or Sundays, one of them. Why? Child abuse. we find the Valkyries and get caught, and they take us to meet the ruler of the land. It's Skyhawk, but possessed by Scotty, so we call her Scotty. She takes us to Ophelia and the cat robot, and Ophelia pulls out a gun and tries to shoot us. Scotty freezes the bullets so that we don't get hurt. We learn that so long as we are here, Scotty won't let them hurt us, because she has a severe mama complex about humans. That said, she doesn't trust us to not end the world and has us thrown in prison where we meet a smug loli. The smug loli breaks us out and tells us about a weirdly flamboyant man who we should go seek out to help us. We escape to the village and find a French. The French is very French. The French tells us that he was summoned with the intention of marrying a human woman. He turns his eyes to Mash. However, he determines her a homunculus and continues to search. We ask the girl, totally not an elf, if she knows where the giants come from, and she tells us from a big hole in the ground, or something, and we set off. While traveling, we run into a buff bunny girl who says that she'll kick our ass in 3 Lostbelts, and we're like, okay, and she leaves. We come across the hole and jump down it and find a fire giant. We hit it over the head and its mask falls off, revealing a grotesque face. Little did we know, this caused all the giants in all of Scandinavia's masks to fall off as well. So now their design is just scary. We escape the hole and the giants are all going nuts, but are still not reenacting Attack on Titan. We cut to another scene of Ophelia reminiscing about how awful her childhood is. I believe that there's also a scene in there about what happened when they all got aced by Geisha, and how the alien god came down and was just like, nope, and rescued them. We are tipped off by the smug loli that if we really want to bring down the cat robot and his entourage of bird women, who really don't do anything during the story, we need to get his wife and their older sister. She is being held captive by Johnny Cash up on the mountains, so we set out to go and save her. After we break through the Ring of Fire, we find Brynhild, the yandere Valkyrie who's been chasing the wrong husband in Chaldea for like 4 years before this or something. Well, she joins our cause and we reveal the Tesla truck with a can of Fancy Feast out front. The cat bot naturally comes for it and his wife stabs him to death. We then charge Elsa's palace and take on Scotty and Ophelia. Napoleon sees Ophelia and pulls a Pepe Le Pew and attempts to seduce her. Scotty gives them her blessing as well, I'm pretty sure. It's honestly fairly successful. Scotty reveals to us that she views the humans and their settlements as something akin to pets, a very common theme you're going to see throughout the rest of the Lostbelts, and is more or less keeping them alive for this just for the sake of doing so. She is, in actuality, incredibly traumatized from the happenings here some 3,000 years prior, and that this is her coping mechanism. This leads us to realize that this Lostbelt is all about hidden trauma coming to the surface, and we hear an ominous laugh as a very large hidden trauma comes to the surface. The sun hatches like an egg and a massive fire giant named Sutter appears. He says that he hid inside the eye of Ophelia as they communed on the brink of death or something. It turns out that she wears that eye patch to hide her heterochromia, which would make her a deviant artist's wet dream. You know who you are, you fucking weeb. Anyway, we get Ophelia's backing and the French on our side to fight off the giant who is a Saber-class enemy in this case. Rather than take Napoleon though, we grab a level 100 Billy David and just destroy him. I'm talking just wreck him. Scotty then accepts her fate team and decides to fight us for her Lostbelt. Ushi destroys her and she dies, only appearing again for the anniversary and not in my Chaldea. Ophelia accepts French's marriage proposal and then dies as well. We bury her and then leave her in the Lostbelt. The last thing that we are left with is the little elf girl going outside and jumping before being erased from existence. We cry. We pick up a signal in the Atlantic Ocean and find ourselves at a secret base. So secret in fact that the destroy everything beam that the planet was shot with didn't wipe it out. They are broadcasting a signal that only we are able to detect or something, and we manage to dock on the base. Once we get in there, we find a small boy with weird proportions and another eggplant girl with twin tails, and that one mystic code that's good for challenge quests. She tells us that she's been expecting us and is ready to help us fix all these issues. She says that she is from the Atlas Institute, a place that specializes in making and then hiding weapons that break the Geneva Conventions. She is a scientific creation inventor operating network, or Scion for short. She shows us something amazing. It's like the Chaldea summoning system, but this one has rocks. Our commander Gorgi eats a piece of cake with a comical looking fork. We apparently had eaten half of it before, but this absolute unit couldn't help but take the rest. Suddenly, we detect Fluff in the secret base and evil Tamamo, not Tamamo, has snuck in. She tells us that she poisoned the cake and that the only cure exists in ancient Chinese medicine. Luckily, the next Lostbelt is ancient China. We drive to China and discover that it resembles Kansas, being a lush swath of flatlands covered in beautiful golden crops. We manage to find a magical earth vein and shove the briefcase into it. Doing so, we manage to call forth China's 3 greatest heroes, Mordred, Spartacus, and Jin Kai. As it would turn out, this area of China mysteriously has no dead heroes. We look off the distance and see an enormous building that resembles an enormous egg with wings. Suddenly, we are approached by this Lostbelt's cryptor, a girl whose name doesn't really matter for reasons I'll get into later. Accompanying her is a hot man with a mask. She tells him to kill us and he tries to, but Spartacus smells the fact that he has oppressed others and grabs him by the head before throwing him into the stratosphere. The girl whose current name doesn't matter leaves. We find a village of people dressed like your average Kansas resident. They tell us that they live simple, happy lives tending to the fields. Sound familiar? And that if they are good, the Emperor will shoot a care package at them. The care packs are full of Turkish delights, made in China. We smash cut to a room in the giant egg where the Emperor is chilling to this absolute banger of a theme. He tells an old man to go thaw out a handful of soldiers, and they are an incredibly cute girl, a fat gremlin, and a robotic horse. The gremlin sticks around the Emperor to provide assistance, while the cute girl rides the horse to where we are. The cute girl tells us that their most glorious and perfect royal emperor has made a declaration that Chaldea is not to be harmed so long as they decide to simply stay in this world and cause no problems. This causes the unnamed girl to attack us again, but realizes her servant has yet to return, so she stops. She then sees the recently thawed out robo horse and gets embarrassed before fleeing. We decide to play along for now and go to the village. However, the word of the Emperor does not sit well in the mind of old Sparty boy, who runs off on his own, preaching about the death of the oppressors. Given his nature, we kind of just let him go. We hang out and ask the natives what they do around here, and they say that they farm all the time. The Emperor apparently conquered the world around 2,000 years ago or so and has turned everything into Kansas. We take notice that everyone in the village is fairly young, which seems odd. Jean K gets drunk and begins reciting poetry about the moon in her new animation update. The people are intrigued at this, never having heard such a thing before. Suddenly, a care pack falls from the sky. Hanging onto it is the hot man Spartacus had launched. Taking this opportunity, the unnamed girl appears and is fighting us. I guess the Emperor catches wind of this and decides to use $900,000 on an orbital strike on our location. All the citizens freak out, but still maintain that his most prominent and vilified royal emperor must be doing this for a good reason. When all hope seems lost, Spartacus appears and head pats a little Chinese boy. He then jumps in the air in one of the most memorable scenes in the game in order to single-handedly defeat oppression. He absorbs the entire space cannon's hit, but forgets to activate his gut skill and dies. We have no choice but to move on and begin traveling to the giant egg because we don't want the village to be wiped out. We get an analysis back from the base that tells us that whatever is in those care packs kills the people after a certain age, and that this entire land of Kansas is run like a never-ending factory to make fuel. Humans here live in a permanent stasis and are never permitted to grow old. Gene K keeps reading poetry, which inspires the natives. Inspires them to do what? I don't know. Cut to his most holy progenitor of the land by the steps, deciding that he no longer likes evil Tamamo not Tamamo, calls her Daiji, and then he has the royal robot scarecrows literally torture the ever-loving hell out of her. As we are making our way to a new place to stake out, we find the place where evil Mikon is being held. We kill the torture bots and then she owes us one and agrees to tell us where we can find the antidote to the poison. However, all of a sudden the unnamed girl appears and tries to kill us with her servant again. Once again, we easily defeat them because bosses with non-damaging NPs really are just walking chumps. Unnamed girl then rips the heart out of her servant. She eats it, and evolves into Yu. Yu is very powerful because Yu has an AoE NP. In response, we summon a level 1 Matahari with the Cure command code and solo her. Thank you, Matahari. Anyway, she retreats and leaves. Dark Mikon tells us that his high and grand most exalted self has a collection of every single rare and valuable item in history on display in his castle, and that we need to get into it to get it. She assures us that it is possible, but that we have no chance of winning. She says that she'll take us there, but Jin K is like, I'm gonna go on ahead and fulfill my purpose. I got an animation update, and I'm pretty sure I can take this guy. I mean, it's my whole deal, right? And we're like, Jin K, he's on rate up as one of the most broken rulers in the entire game. One of the better stall units in the game. You really think he can do this? He can solo Woodman in 2.5 chapters from now. And Woodman beat Zeus. Naturally, Jin K leaves and gets ace, but the fact that she's able to get in at all and attack his most easy, breezy, and beautiful governess puts him on high alert, and he deploys his most powerful soldier, an old man who punches people. At the base of the giant egg machine, Qin Liang Yu stops us and we have to kill her. Remember, she's just a human, and I legit feel bad about killing her because she was only doing what she thought was right. Once she is dealt with, we are stopped by the old man. This is the hardest fight in this Lost Belt because he just wrecks everything. Thankfully, he gets a back cramp, we're able to stab him in the liver. He bleeds out, remarking he lived to be like 120 years old, and we actually get a scene of him dying and talking to a fat man. The ending of this Lost Belt legit made me feel weird as hell. Like, I legit feel bad killing the enemies. Well, our next stop on our boss rush is Yu and her horse husband. This fight is also hard. We manage to kill the horse, and Yu just kind of gives up, grieving with the loss of her husband again. We smack her over the head with the cricket paddle that we found and grab the antidote and attempt to escape. But the roof of the egg fucking explodes and we are met with the big bad himself. His most fluttery and whimsical Lepidoptera, Qin Shi Huang. He congratulates us on making it as far as we have, but remarks that our journey ends here. He wants to know why we wish to destroy his perfect utopia, and we tell him that this world is kind of boring. Kansas is nice and all, but people are meant to grow old and make mistakes and actually be permitted to live. He essentially just hits us with the, is that so? And then attacks us. We pull out Steak Mom, who crits the ever-loving hell out of him, and then he accepts that and he loses. We then eat the antidote with his blessing and then walk away. We then run into the tree. This one is a mega chump because it can be sold by everyone's favorite hot cup, Eerie. She pulls it off and we leave. We are left with his most fantastic beast and where we found him, watching the end of the world with the child that we met, and then he literally walks to Chaldea across the entire multiverse. I think that's canon. I'm pretty sure he walks to Chaldea. Next stop is going to be India. This one is weirdly throbbing back and forth, and Scion wants us to go figure out what the deal is. We're like, alright, and decide to bring along with us one of the servants who is very familiar with the country, Neza. We travel there with the whole gang minus Scion, and with us this time is the Shoto captain, Nemo. He is able to clone himself to make an entire crew of Shotos and Lolis, raising a lot of questions, but I'm not asking any of them. We arrive in India and find that everything is somewhat run down and shabby. We notice a few things right off the bat. 1. There's a giant cube. 2. There are demons all over the place called Kali. Not the goddess Kali, but weird alligator demon things. We kill a couple in an attempt to summon some servants who can lend us a hand. We manage to pull a Karna and a Rama from our multi and eat the tofu that came with it. They tell us that they will lend us a hand. We go to the village and meet a little girl who welcomes us. She has a dog. Both are very cute. Her dad shows up and tells us that we need to leave because outsiders are not welcome. We run into the mayor of the town who more or less drives us out. We do learn that a strange person came by not too long ago and left for the mountains. We take this as a sign and do pick up a servant signal. We follow it and suddenly another signal gets picked up, rapidly approaching us. It crashes into Neza and blasts a hole right into her fishnets. When the smoke clears, we see that the enemy is Neza, Gyaru version. She kills our Neza and is about to try and ace us, but leaves because she's told to. We then find an elephant statue that tells us that we need to leave. We hit it with a rock and she starts attacking us. We crack it open and find a cute girl inside. She goes off about how she's from the moon or something and is actually the great god Ganesha, but is actually just a Jinako. She says that she'll never help us, but then she sees that we managed to pull her husbando, and she begrudgingly joins us. Then the best character in Fate shows up and tells us that his boyfriend broke up with him. We learn that the world ends every single week and that a depressing catboy picks away all the things that he dubs to be unneeded or imperfect. We then also learn that he's planning on wiping out everything here in a minute, so we need to get out of Dodge ASAP. We see him charging his spirit ball and make a mad dash for the mystery machine. On the way, we see a very distraught fox who is looking for a ride. We allow her to hitch a ride with us because she is cute. Almost do not make it aboard, but thankfully Karna pulls some badass hero shit and literally blocks an eradication beam just long enough for us to slip out. He dies. We manage to resurface out of Ohio and find that everything has become a rich paradise. We swing back to the village that had told us to leave and find now that everyone is happy and cheerful, celebrating the good fortune that had befallen them. Everyone except that little girl's dad, who is still pissed. We ask them what's going on and they say that this is their post-apocalypse celebration and that they are going to live it up until the next time everything goes bad. We also notice that the girl's dog is gone. She kinda looks at us confused and asks us, what dog? We find out that the Catboy deletes System 32 and the whole universe starts over again, and this has been happening for a while. 32 times, in fact. We ask if there are other villages and are pointed towards the northeast where we walk around and fight a magical horse or something. We then encounter Not Jean, who attacks us with a gun. Thankfully, Rama has bananas, the natural counter to firearms, and sways Jean to our side. She reveals that she is actually called Lakshmi Bai, the unluckiest woman in India. She demonstrates this by falling over a banana peel on accident that Rama was eating. She tells us that she has been training the people of this village to go and attack God because they all felt like there was something missing. Alright, so apparently, human souls are like website cookies, and that even after you remove the program or get off that website, a vague recollection of them can be found to offer them and help with the targeted ads. The people in this village would keep getting ads for their things about happy couples and parents and realized that at one point that they had others that cared for them that were just completely wiped. So now, they're gonna go fight God. Gyaru Neza appears. We fight her for a bit and then Lakshmi Bai sneezes and fires her gun, headshotting Neza. The Gyaru then tells us it's possible to kill the Catboy before fading away. Lakshmi then asks us the most important question posed by any character in all of Fate's history. Are you British? Holmes, who has been busy chilling in the mystery machine smoking opium, admits to the fact that he is, in fact, a British. Lakshmi hears this, but decides to join us regardless. Now with a base of operation, we plan to make our next move. Cut to the Catboy, Clown, Bird, and an old man all gazing down at the world. Of these, the old man seems to be the most trustworthy, and the clown informs the Catboy that the Gyaru is dead. The Catboy purrs and points to the death location, and a flying wheel suddenly begins flying in that direction. A few days pass, and we are out of the post-apocalypse era and are now in the everything is just fine era. As we are sitting down and talking with Pepe over some tea, a flaming dude appears and tries to kill us. It's his ex. We summon Enkidu, who just destroys him and then he vanishes. The wheel guy pulls a Team Rocket and then vanishes as well. Pepe tells us that was his former servant who abandoned him, aka his boyfriend. He then tells us how he has a special magic that was taught to him by the guy from Fate Extra. We continue to train the villagers in the way of archery and swordsmanship. Then finally, after a time skip, we are back to when everything is horrible. We have trained our villagers and they seem to be able to hold their own for a bit. That is until the Catboy sends a bunch of horrid flesh alligators to attack us. He had managed to locate the rebel village because he is not just a god, but every single Indian god rolled into one. For the record, there are a ton of Hindu deities, there's like at least 12. Catboy has gone on the offensive and deploys the Old Man. The Old Man is actually one of the most famous archers in the world, totally not from a Kojima game. He begins shooting crazy red arrows at us, all of them hitting us because they have Ignore Evade. Then, Lakshmi stands on top of the mystery machine while we are driving and channels her powers. By this, I mean that she becomes an arrow magnet and willingly takes the shots regardless of the class advantage. We then close the gap enough for Rama, Ganesha, and Lakshmi to deal a fatal blow to the Old Man's head. We then dive back into the realm of Ohio to avoid the incoming obliteration. However, our blow to the head seems to have dislodged a buried memory of the Old Man's son, And in this moment of realization, he shoots the Catboy in the face for having buried his memories. He then smiles and lights a cigarette, and is eradicated. When we emerge, we find out that entire village that we had trained will not be in Rush Hour 3, and the Catboy is exhausted, but pissed. He sends the bird to go and attack us. The bird isn't really a fighter, so he summons zombies to fight for him. Once we beat him, he stops fighting us and just goes around healing people. He didn't seem like such a bad guy, just a little bit too motivated in his work. We then run into a complete out of left field appearance of David, a different crypt keeper. With him is a death-obsessed servant who we identify as a grand servant. How he managed to pull one? Swiss bank accounts. He doesn't bother us and just bails, then we go back to the main village. The girl is all alone living there with her aunt now. Her father was erased during the previous cycle's uptick of flesh alligators. We decide that this needs to end now and go to address something that has been nagging at us. The giant cube. We don't know exactly what it is, but Holmes tells us that he has an idea. We go to it and it's covered in demons. There's too many, but suddenly our luck kicks in and we are able to resummon Karna. He survived the destruction of the universe twice, somehow. I don't recall how. He tells us that in order to defeat the Catboy, we need an artifact from before he became the ultimate life form. As such, we need to send someone back in time to get one. Turns out, Jinako is the one for this job. With a combination of multiple servant magics, we send her back in time where she becomes a massive cube. In it, she can do anything that she likes, so she plays video games for thousands of years, and then goes virtually insane because the Mahabharata appeared like, I don't know, literally tens of thousands of years ago. Essentially, she's just thrown into time jail. Finally, for what feels like seconds for us was eons for her, and she emerges. Then we get attacked by the Wheelman again, and Karna pulls him into the Hell Dimension where they do a training montage, and Karna convinces him to fight for us. He agrees, and once they re-emerge, Rama trades in his magic sword and takes the Curse of Shiva off of Hot Wheels, because it cannot be a story with Rama in it if he isn't cursed in some way. Then, Karna forges that sword into a spear and becomes Kakakarna. Nemo then turns their Tesla into the Mystery Machine, then the Mystery Machine into the Mega Machine, then we drive it across the Lake of Milk to go fight the Catboy. I think that we fight the clown as well, but it's the same fight from Shimosa, so it was pretty easy. Then we summon Benkei, George Leonidas, and Mash to act as a wall to let Kakakarna kill the Catboy. He does. We then manage to escape and find both Pepe and Fox Lady have vanished. We are left with the scene of the little girl crying as she realizes that all of her family is dead. Then we get a CE that shows all the family that is dead, and we are left with a scene of us crying reflecting the black screen of our phones. Anyway, I'm pretty sure we have like a few weeks break to go and pal around with Musashi in Vegas and live out all of our Dojin dreams for a while, but then we have to snap back to reality to go destroy Greece. We are greeted with an opening scene of Daeon being decapitated by a mecha pilot and a mystery servant being summoned out of their blood. We then jump with the whole crew underwater in order to hide our presence. A buff man whose job is to stare at the water informs the others that he saw a minuscule ripple. They begin charging a space cannon and send one hell of a tomboy to get us. She hits us with a massive spear underwater. Then a pair of twins comes at us as well as some half-eaten chocolate mobs. Thankfully for both of these fights, class advantage is possible because there are no restrictions. Just you wait. That said, we are quote-unquote no match for them. Then a giant space laser destroys everything and we're all presumed dead. As the enemy celebrates victory, we wash ashore on the island. Then we encounter hands down one of the best girls in the game. She tells us that her name is Corday, and that she is useless but will try her best. We travel the island, and while we are about to go fight some monsters, a bear man pisses on us. He is an archer who throws hands and easily dispatches the enemy. We recognize his voice as belonging to Ku, but knowing full well that Ku was TOS into wearing a jumpsuit, we identified this one as being Orion, but big. He offers to lend us a hand, and we make our way to another island. On that island, we are reunited with our beloved eggplant, and we make out with them while everyone watches, and it makes Corday kinda mad. Everyone else is there as well, but we find that Nemo is in a coma after watching his boat explode. We are greeted by Francis Drake, who looks so good in this portrayal. It is actually criminal that this is not a costume yet. It will be on arcade in 3 months. Corday then talks to Ashoda that has a crush on her. She tells us that all the Greek gods are these massive robots and that right now we know about like 3 of them. The one who shot us was Artemis, which is just Orion, Poseidon, who Drake shows us the heart of that she stole from him, and Zeus, who we haven't seen yet. Don't ask how Drake got the heart, because I don't know. I just had the realization that the lack of a summer Drake is criminal as well. Also in this place, Jason is there and he remembers how we whooped his ass in Okeanos. He's angry but does agree to lend us a hand after some convincing. Anyway, we talk to the village elder and he tells us about a pervert with a ship. The pervert shows up and offers to help so long as he can see us with our hair covering our eyes. We're like, sure, and he gets bricked up and sails off to an island. Orion stays behind on this island and flirts with Artemis Alter. At the island, we find a guy from a different anime series. He offers to join us and we're like, sure. He then has an inner monologue about being insufficient to help us. We love him. He is carrying a wooden sword because he's a Hector simp and he bought that one in the Troy gift shop. He tells us that he was a part of the group of heroic spirits that wasn't aced by the dude who used the brimstone ult on us. But they told him to stay behind for us. He tells us that the gods are like the sandworms from Dune. They produce a spice that can enhance us with various effects, and that if we get a certain god spice, we can hasten Nemo's coma process. We manage to snag some of them from the snake ladies, then we go back to the island where Drake is. We have Nemo shoot up, but then Orion kicks in the tent door and says that Mecha Artemis is going to destroy the island because we are here. We flee the island, but the inhabitants decide to stay, including the Shota that likes Corday. He has a moment's realization that she is a best girl candidate, and then is reduced to atoms and stardust. Also, Drake stays behind too because she is handicapped. We move to a different island and talk with those inhabitants to figure out that the people of Atlantis are thousands of years old, but did not develop a proper civilization, and that the various islands around the craters are all the gods. So, apparently, there was a big war between the gods, and half of them sided with humans being their own thing, and the other half wanted to rule over and guide humans forever. Well, the side that wanted to rule killed the side that wanted to let the humans be free, and rewired some of the others. Artemis sided with the rule faction, which is immediately sus, because we know Artemis, and this isn't even close to how she would act. Like, even as an alternate universe version and a giant robot, I still cannot see her being a killing machine. Poseidon also decided with the let us be free side, but was rewritten by Zeus to be a crazy sea god that attacks anything in the ocean. You lost yet? Alright, well here's a full recap of the recap. The gods are strong, and the people here are immortal, and if we don't find the god spice, we're gonna die. Cool? Cool. Alright, we fight some buff dudes and we get some more god spice and make ourselves and our party stronger. We find a hologram or a message from the servants who came before us telling them we need to find Hephaestus. He was an anti-god god, but was cut in half and is technically still alive and can help us. They don't elaborate how he can do that. As we are traveling, we come across a lost shepherd with a sheep on his head and Achilles. Those two are fighting each other, but we get in the way. Turns out the lost shepherd is the man who killed Achilles, Paris, but now Shota because the sheep is actually the Greek god Apollo, but not a robot. The Apollo of this world was killed, which is probably a pretty surreal thing for our sheep man. I'm also realizing that we have two gods that are now sheep in FGO canon, which is weird. Anyway, they joined us and we managed to locate a communicator that talks to us with Hephaestus, who tells us that if we can find a divine object, we can make it into an arrow, which then can be used to shoot down Artemis. Thankfully, Achilles' armor is a divine artifact. Now we need to make it to the island that Hephaestus is on. By that I mean his force, so we can actually do the forging. Suddenly, an arm shoots out of the ground and now we have a Chiome in our party. She tells us that she, much like Mandracardo, was told to stay behind and left with a message that there was a god that we may be able to sway to our side on an island nearby. We get the notification on our iPhone that Artemis is headed to our location, that she's packing heat. We quickly flee with our new companions and the island explodes. We have a bit of a heart-to-heart with Corday, who, much like Mandracardo, believes herself to be useless. We assure both of them that they are legitimate candidates for Best Girl and My Friendo. We arrive on the island and are met by Luvia. She says that she cannot help us because she is holding the scales, and if she were to move outside of her flat.png, they may tip and the universe will implode. However, she puts us through a series of trials in order to give us strength. We survive these and then are told that she already had been approached by the two alter egos. Namely, a red-headed kid acting like an old man and an old man serving Mapo tofu. With our newfound strength, we make haste to the island of Hephaestus' full body and forge. While there, we get attacked by the tomboy again, this time disobeying the orders given to her by Woodman, who is her master. We beat her because she is not on the water and then she goes back in disgrace, but gets jumped by the twins and sent to the bottom of the ocean after being brutally killed. Back to us, we talk with Hephaestus and he makes the arrows that we need after we fight a Cerberus. So, I've left this out intentionally, but I'll mention it now. We ask Orion if he can kill Artemis at least 6 different times, and every single time he gives the same answer. He says, yes, because she's lonely and I want to save her. I don't know why they repeat this so many times, but they do. So when you're playing through this and you notice that, just look. While we are here as well, Corday gets covered in the silver goo and becomes evil. Turns out that she was a double agent the entire time, and she was the servant summoned in Adeon's blood, and has been our enemy. We beat her and then give her a Zeus spice that helps maintain her and reconvert her to our side. Then, as we are traveling, we get attacked and have to fight Woodman. He literally summons these stars and is about to obliterate us, but then what looks to be our dead Nagatoro senpai appears and saves us. Woodman leaves us alone because he promised to only fight 2 more times, and this was one of them. So, he's down to 1. This will make sense later. Probably. No, it won't. Anyway, we get reunited with a group or something, and now we're off to kill Artemis. But, now the mecha guy shows up with a centaur man, and he tells us that he has to kill us. These are like the worst villains in all of the Lostbelts because they just appear at the end with nearly no build-up. Like we kind of get something with Odysseus, being that he's trying to like preserve Atlantis, but Chiron just shows up, and it's bad. He's not a good villain. It's just bad. I don't understand why they did it like this. Anyway, Achilles kills Chiron, and then we kill the mecha pilot, who is revealed to be Odysseus. Oh wait, I already said that. We then make it to a temple, and Orion aims his holy arrow and fires it at Artemis. She shoots a space cannon at us and blocks the arrow, so he fires a second one that does connect. Artemis panics and fires an emergency final shot after Orion just dies right there. Now we are royally screwed because we have nothing to do. But Hector just gets summoned out of nowhere and gives us his sword and then dies. Mandracardo now knows what he must do, and he activates his second skill, which lets him fire off a beam that cuts through the laser and finishes off Artemis. However, this kills both him and Orion. Now we are down to very, very few servants on our side. I think there was a giant snake monster there as well that Chiome gets fed to, but then Chiome sacrifices herself to poison it, which I then think stops monster production or something. It's really just built up a lot with bad resolution. Oh yeah, and the pervert pirate also dies, and there's a super tragic scene of Corday confessing her love to us before dying as well. Nemo, now back on his feet, manages to recreate the submarine, and we're off to go kill our last obstacle, Poseidon. He is an awesome looking fish robot, and we go and rip out his other 3 hearts. But, as it would turn out, Chiron is not actually dead and is our final obstacle to defeating the gods. With Jason's help, we manage to kill them and prepare to leave. Jason says he's going to stay behind and make sure that more enemies don't follow and to gather any stragglers. We leave and arrive in Olympus, but not before getting a scene where Jason is incredibly banged up and injured. He'd been hiding it to keep up appearances the whole time. Remember, Jason is not a fighter, he's a leader. He doesn't actually do any fighting. This is the perfect redemption arc for this horrid bastard. We then get an ominous makeout scene between Muramasa and a robot. Our first glimpse of Olympus is that it has a huge tree growing out of it, and that it is an entirely aerial city. We are greeted by Zeus telling us that we are going to die here, and he fires anti-Chaldea missiles at us. We avoid most of these but then shot out of the sky because it wouldn't be a story arc if our means of transportation wasn't destroyed, or damaged at the start. The rest of the crew hangs out and recuperates while Mash and us head out to what appears to be a city. It's a city that looks like it appears out of a sci-fi setting, but with all the people dressed up like ancient Greeks. Seto Kaiba comes over the intercom and declares that people who with red hands are demons, and that they are coming to destroy the world. This is not necessarily wrong, but a woman sees that we have a red hand and screams, and suddenly a giant robot man shows up and bitch slaps us. We fly into a building and attempt to fight it off. We do this twice and then watch a civilian turn into a Roman centurion with the strength of a servant. Thankfully, it's a phantom level strength. But regardless, a local Shotokan then shows up and saves us. It's everyone's favorite magical Musashi. She cuts off this dude's head and then we begin to flee. But then 2 gods show up, accompanied by not Hyris, it's Iris, a giant robot, and blonde twins. It's looking pretty rough, but then a smokescreen hits us and we're dragged underground. We discover that there are another set of twins that aren't the Dioscuri. They explained to us that they had helped out the other servants that had made it this far, but that those servants are all dead now, all of them, crushed by the gods. But they create an AI that pretty much picks up their slack but doesn't fight. We learn that these siblings want to have this world end because they have been alive for thousands of years and that life is stale and not worth living. This, to me, personally is the best motivation I've seen in the Lostbelt stories. So, now they want to free the people of Olympus from the shackles of immortality. We then agree to help them. We get a flashback of Helena, Tesla, and Edison getting killed by a crazy vagina monster. The crazy vagina monster is actually a super cute MILF. She has been supposedly driven mad by the fact that she was forced to kill her daughter by Zeus. We also learn that John Ghoul is here, and so is Pepe. They are more or less chilling out, but it's becoming clear that John Ghoul does not like this world. Zeus sends the cute MILF to go and kill the city that we are in. This is fine to the gods because they can literally just resurrect the people who die. We decide that this is the best chance that we're going to get to Ace of God, but we don't really have a weapon to do it. Luckily, the AI had designed a super gun that gets attached to Mash's shield, and is capable of killing a god and making her an actual viable DPS. Suck my cock, Mash haters. As we are now trying to figure out the details as to how to beat the MILF's regenerative abilities, we are then approached by the tomboy that died in the last chapter. He says that she lived because she can't drown thanks to the fact that she was shagged by Poseidon against her will. She hates the gods, but especially Poseidon. It is a very problematic story, I recommend you go look it up. She agrees to help us because Gorgie fed her a croissant. She says that she can stop the MILF's regeneration because she has Poseidon's powers. Thus, we go to kill a god. The MILF is once again a vagina monster and has killed the entire southern city by screaming. We then partake in the most obnoxious fight that Fate has ever made, at least so far, because it has force supports, AoE with buff removal, and other nonsense. We do manage to beat her, however, and Mash shoots her in the head, killing an immortal god. Zeus eats her corpse and we retreat underground. Our next target is the goddess of love, Aphrodite, the Smoker. She is responsible for killing Mordred, Raiko, and Kentoki. We are told by the siblings that we need to perform a mass summoning rite, and that we need to go get some takeout that's in their fridge back home. We travel and learn about the fact that all of the gods had fought in 4 great wars, and that one of the wars was supposed to wipe them out, but instead Zeus came in clutch and managed to win. Then he went AWOL and got his gods who wanted to rule humans, and then the others who wanted the humans to live alone and revolted. And as we were told earlier, Zeus and the other gods killed them. The area that we are in is Hades' Crackden, and Zeus, notoriously the founder of the DARE program, refuses to go down there or even look there. We resurface with new disguises and get into the siblings' home. We crack open the fridge and find a crazy man inside. It is everyone's favorite emperor who assigned a horse as a senator, Caligula. The siblings indicate that he is the key to winning this war. Suddenly, Joker gas floods the streets and we start killing each other. We look up at the sky and see a giant pink ant robot flea thing. Once we snap each other out of our stupor, we somehow get high enough into the sky to fight this thing. But honestly, I don't remember how. While we seem at a bit of loss of how to deal with this, the Kentoki AI comes out and screams the words, and now we have a giant mecha on our side that holds Aphrodite down while we shoot her in the head. She dies. 2 gods down, 1 to go. We recoup, but are first led to an underground passage via missed voicemail. It's from Hephaestus. He says he wants us to meet the cooperator who's leading the twin. So we go to his crib and we see that Muramasa is there. Remember, he's our enemy now. But not really. He tells us that he cares more about working with the god of the forge than serving some weird aliens. We also meet up with the cooperator. Iris, it's still not Iris, it's Europe. She tells us that only Zeus wanted to rule over the humans, and he rewired all the other gods and killed the ones that he couldn't work with. Europe then wants us to help the siblings because she is actually a proper human history servant, but was doing recon so well that she managed to pull off absorbing Hera. She says the words, "I will help you," and then Centurions and the other twins kick in the door, followed by the Tofu Man. Tofu Guy takes Europe, and we are ordered to be killed by the twins. We kill them. Canis laughs in their faces and Hephaestus blue screens before an announcement is made that Europe has betrayed Greece and now she will be executed. Now we have to go and save Europe. We get into the Mega Mystery Machine and fly up to go stop this execution. We finally meet Zeus, who laughs at us and leaves. We then have to kill Europe, but she's backed by the Mega Mecha Talos. We beat them but don't kill Europe. Now we are challenged by Zeus. He is a giant floating head, so there is truly only one person up to finishing this job. Caligula sacrifices himself as the catalyst to bring about a grand summon. The person who has given us a head for multiple Valentine's Day, the hero we all need. Mao Nobu, baby, let's go! We summon Mao Nobu to absolutely destroy them. Worst 5-star rated by me? Yeah, she is. Does that mean she's bad? Fuck no, baby! Go in there and kick some ass. She dismantles Zeus completely, and now for the final boss, we have to fight Woodman himself. We have a flashback where he was assassinated and survived and saved by a homeless boy. The thing is, though, is that he went from pretentious to a real hero because his real wish is to make the world where humans can thrive. His is actually a pretty noble cause, and I don't really have all the time in the world to describe it now because you're already looking at how long this video is, but because all of humanity was eradicated to get this done, we have to kill him. He is in the process of making every human a god, and we have to stop that. We fight him by soloing him with the best Lostbelt King. As we are about to shake hands on a fair fight, and he is going to hand us the reins of humanity, the worst crypt keeper named Barry stabs Woodman. He then lays down to die. Suddenly, the tree hatches, and inside was none other than the cute tsundere that died on us in the very first chapter. Now a giant and still very cute, she claims to be the aliens. However, she is clumsy and kind of goofy, and in what seems to be like something out of a Gouda Gouda rather than a main story chapter, everyone's just like, oh, it's the cute tsundere. She thinks that she's just going to walk right in and take over Earth, but with the last of his strength, Woodman drops the sky on her head, and she's sucked back into space-time or something. However, by dropping the sky, a tear in the sky came about and a huge eye appears. It's none other than Chaos. So now we have to go kill Chaos. Out of our desperation, a proper human history god is summoned, and it's Ares, the Greek god of war. He's instantly vaporized. Also, he was also a robot. I got a lot of questions. I need to do some theory crafting. So, we have a plan to kill Chaos. Musashi stands on the Mega Mystery Machine, and we fly right towards Chaos. She then makes one last cut and deletes herself from the game, but in turn, kills Chaos. Rest in peace, you beautiful bastard. The Vegas rerun is now going to hurt very much to play. But that is it. Gods are all dead, and as such, the shrine where the gods were staying begins to fall to the earth. The siblings that have been with us the entire time in Europe remain on it as it falls apart, and then all of them die, remarking that they wish they could have seen each other actually grow older, but that this was a fine way to go out regardless. We cry. Oh shit! Also, we saved Kadok. Dude got killed by the Tofu Man, and we picked him up. I think we stole some hentai files from there. I don't really recall because they shoved all the important story at the very end. If you think that we're done, you're wrong though, as it turns out that Canis is the real final boss here, owing us a final fight. We summon to support Musashi, who kills her and then she dies happy, and I will be grailing her once I have QP again. It's never gonna happen. We then return to the base having saved all of Olympus. It is then wiped out in about 30 minutes because it is a lost belt. Alright, next up we have clowns, snakes, and furries.